And action. Welcome to Action Podcast's Paul's Old Time Movie Classics. I'm sorry, Paul's Old Ass Movie Classics. We've changed the name. That's the official name. I'm going with that one. It's catchy. I like it. So we're going to do it. And this week, well, first, I have my friend here, Drew Stewart, my partner in crime here to review these old ass movies.
Always glad to do it.
And this week we got a special one. We have an early Martin Scorsese film. And the movie is called Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore from 1974. This is on Netflix right now. And in terms of, this is right after he did Mean Streets, but before he did like Raging Bull. So he's not an unknown, but he's still not mainstream, I would say. Known in the film world, but not, again, super popular. And then, like I said, directed by Martin Scorsese, who also directed Raging Bull and Goodfellas. If you, for some reason, never heard of Martin Scorsese, also directed the new Killers of the Flower Moon. Scorsese is nominated for that one. And this is written by Robert Getchell, who also wrote Mommie, Dearest, Point of No Return with Bridget Fonda. I don't know if you remember that one. And The Client with Tommy Lee Jones. So he's written some decent films there. And this stars, of course, Ellen Burstyn, Kristopherson, and Harvey Keitel. Very young Harvey Keitel. I never knew Harvey Keitel was in a movie and he's not 40 plus years old. This is the in the movie. I didn't actually look up his age, but in the movie,
well, you haven't seen Mean Streets then.
I have. I guess, yeah, he'd be younger in that one.
But yeah, no, I agree. It feels like his life started at 45.
Yeah, he's kind of like Morgan Freeman, right? Like we've never seen him younger than 40.
Totally.
But yeah, and the premise of this movie is a recently widowed woman is on the road with her precocious young son, determined to make a new life for herself as a singer. This is rated 7.3 on IMDb. This had a budget of 1.8 million and grossed 18.6. And then also a little trivia. So there was a spin-off. They turned the kind of the premise of this movie into a sitcom, and
I had no idea about that.
That's what even made me want to watch it, because I somehow saw that. I saw Alice and I'm like, huh. And then somehow
Did you watch it when you were a kid?
I've seen it for sure. Like I remember, like once the movie got going, I was like, oh, okay, I totally remember the show. Because the show
if you had said that there was a movie that Murder, She Wrote was spun off, I certainly would have seen that.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mel's Diner is, that's obviously based off of this movie. And then I think there was two shows. There was Alice, and then there was Mel's Diner, I think was another show.
To have a double spin-off for a movie that I had actually never heard of before you mentioned it last week is amazing.
Let me double check. I know for sure there's a show.
Oh, you're right. I read that too. Mel's Diner was also.
Okay. I think Mel's Diner spun off of Alice. I think the Alice actress moved off, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
The actress moved off, and then they just kept the restaurant going with the show because I think it's the same actor too, by the way. He looked kind of familiar. And then Flo was like one of the famous actresses or characters, at least.
Yeah.
She's the traditional, like when you think of a waitress at a diner, Flo, and that's like where this all originated from. So
she's literally like, yeah, she's boilerplate.
Yeah, this is definitely kind of iconic in that sense. So again, that was a big reason why I wanted to watch this, because this was like the origin story for a lot of this stuff. So, but yeah, Jude, talk about your favorite thing about the movie.
I liked it. I'm interested to hear your take. I am guessing I might have liked it a little bit more than you.
Not necessarily.
I was taken completely by surprise. Like, I haven't seen every Scorsese movie, and I know that I haven't seen a lot of his middle work, like in the 80s and things like that weren't necessarily all gangsters. I've seen most of his,
or New York based, right? Like that's what made this off too.
I've seen a lot more of his, sort of more recent stuff, and then his like 70s stuff. So anyway, this was such a different take for him. Like female I feel like this is a common theme sometimes we talk about noir too, but like I feel like in a lot of his movies, female characters were somewhat two-dimensional, there to sort of drive the plot or character forward for the male characters. and to have a female protagonist in, the 70s, which was the decade of divorce. She didn't get divorced, but she lost her husband and probably was heading towards a nasty divorce at some point.
Yeah.
So just super interesting seeing Scorsese making a film through the eyes of a woman. But my two favorite things I think were actually her relationship with her son. I thought the two of them were hilarious.
Yeah.
I really liked their relationship. I liked how how much she sort of let him be more mature for his age since she was putting him through all of this stuff. Like she put up with a lot of crap from him,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
understandably because she just kind of was carting him all over the country from motel to motel. And then my second favorite thing was Vera, the other waitress, other than Flo,
The one that was crying all the time.
the one that was crying and bumbling around and spilling things and like
Yeah.
pulling things on people. Like it was such a non sequitur, like that character, but like at the same time, I'm so interested. Like I almost want to watch it again to understand like what is that maniac that's
Yeah.
working. That was such a weirdo. But like I kind of laughed out loud a couple of times when she was just bumbling around the diner because I was like, who is this person?
Yeah. Well, I think you're kind of going into one of my points is you can see why someone was like, honestly, can we just focus on the diner? Like, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of characters in this diner. It's got a very interesting dynamic. It's this hole in the wall, but people want to be there,
Yeah.
and I love the 70s behavior towards, waiters and waitresses and server, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
But just, can we get some service here? Like, we probably grew up in the tail end of this kind of behavior, but like today, obviously that stuff would just, you'd just be on a cell phone and just get absolutely berated. But
Yeah.
I did like watching some of the old behaviors. And this is probably not gonna be a popular opinion, but my favorite part, because I agree, like this kid went through a lot, and he has to mature. At sometimes he's way mature for his age, and there's other times where it's like he just needs to get his ass kicked. And I really did like Kristopherson's character. I would have loved to see more music, musically, like because that was her passion. And once he kind of got introduced, and because he's also in A Star Is Born, and
Yeah.
just like normal, I'm gonna jumble this up because it's all. I always feel like my point has to do with all these other categories,
All
and
good.
but yeah, but I just thought like, yeah, that's a real connection there. Like this is maybe where it's gonna separate, and then he just kind of became just like kind of the Harvey Keitel's character. So it kind of went on a different turn than I expected. But then I actually liked when he kind of stood up to the kid because the kid was going just out of now. I, I don't I don't think a guy in his position should ever strike a kid, or even if it's just punishment. Like he spanked him. It wasn't like a child abuse, but it was a spank. But you should never, obviously, if
It was
it's not
one
your kid,
good hard thwack for sure.
it was a solid whack. Obviously, I've been hit harder from my parents, but they're my parents, right? I'm not a big fan of you should never discipline a child that's not yours. Unfortunately, like there's just a code, right? And but I liked it for the kid because I'm just going from my own experiences. Like sometimes you need to know where the boundaries are. And I actually kind of related to the kid a little bit sometimes because he had very smart things to say sometimes. He had a mouth on him. I remember I was a little bit like that too. I would
No.
challenge things all the time. I wasn't as like defiant as him, and I was, I think, easier to motivate versus this kid wasn't because I played sports and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, and unfortunately, he probably couldn't even have an opportunity to play sports because he was never in one place at the same time. But I love. There's just a scene where it's almost like she at the time she disagreed with them, but then she was just like, "Man, this kid is running all over me. I am allowing him to behave this way." And again, I agree with you. I really like kind of their dynamic, and I think that's really what kind of made this film. She went through a lot in this film, and I think that's what makes this film good. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It's definitely got some 70s clunkiness to it, but I think overall, I think the meat is good on this film.
Okay.
So I kind of handled a lot of different things there.
Yeah,
But let's just go to the next question. Does this
sure.
movie hold up for you?
I think so. I think it's got very relatable themes and characters yes, some of the like behaviors and mannerisms was very different than
Yeah.
in diners and public settings and things like that, but struggles in marriages,
Single mom.
single moms, kids and parents, like new love that turns scary or bad, like all of those
Yeah.
themes are sort of timeless themes. So I think it could easily, I would say it holds up. I think that you know, again, I talked a lot about their relationship, but the relationships I think in general uh that kind of go out through this, like I feel like the characters are pretty well developed for a film of this length, you know.
Yeah,
Um
it's not a long movie, just under 2 hours.
yeah, like I really got to know Alice. I really got to know even Keitel's character, though it took a turn, right? Like you
Yeah.
spend a decent amount of time with him, Kristopherson, the kid. So, you know, I thought that like her relationship with Tommy, her relationship with her friend that she left in New Mexico, the
Yeah.
relationship that started badly with Flo, like at first glance she hated her and then actually turned into a confidant and a friend.
Yeah.
Um, I think just sort of like the human experience absolutely holds up.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. It ultimately, like I said, is just a great kind of character story, and you can see the innovativeness, although slightly clunky, but you can see Scorsese like, yeah, I don't want to do it like that. I want to do it this way. I have an idea. Let's try it this way. And I admire that just because, it wasn't executed perfectly. But at the same time, I can imagine someone watching this back then, like, wow, what's happening right now? Like, there's just in the beginning, there's this. Now I'd be done with a drone. It's easy. It's no problem. But I don't even know. I'm trying to think how they did it because I don't think they used wires back then. But I almost feel like they were on a car and they literally drove up the lawn
Yeah.
and the camera just kind of pans through the window.
Yeah.
It wasn't a smooth wasn't a smooth camera movement. Like I've done it myself, like in film school. And it's like you want the look, and you're just like, it's fine. The look
Yeah.
is better than like the execution.
That opening scene is interesting. Like it almost felt like it was going for like a 30s aesthetic, like
Yeah.
almost sort of Ozish. Um,
Oh,
which
right. The red, and then yeah, that was interesting. I mean, again, very that's Scorsese, man. He's you can see why, he is well sought after this, and was one of the guys that was like, this guy does stuff different. And
yeah,
kind of you see a lot of his styles in this, which is heavy on the songs. He's not a big score guy, right? Like
yeah,
Spielberg, you think of Spielberg films, you can literally all of Spielberg's films have themes that you probably know, whether
yeah.
it's E.T., whether it's Jaws, whether it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's not Steven Spielberg.
No, that's
No, no, it
Lucas.
is. No, 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 no. It is.
Okay.
Lucas wrote it, but Spielberg directed that. What am I talking about? My point is Spielberg is very musically inclined, but with score. But Scorsese is always musically inclined with music and songs, not so much score.
Yeah.
And but you already see that right away. Like this movie has a pretty good soundtrack, even for the time. I mean, the songs worked very well,
Right.
and again, made it probably more interesting than if someone else directed this. So
One
uh,
one last relationship. Sorry.
yeah,
One
go
of
for
the
it.
things I really liked was, first of all, Jodie Foster. I thought Taxi Driver was her first role, but her role in this, she was amazing.
Wait,
Uh,
who is in this?
She was the kid's best friend in Tucson, like the girl, the tomboy, where they went and stole the
Oh,
guitar
jeez,
strings
I
and
don't think I knew that.
yeah, that was Jodie Foster.
The one that gave him wine?
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, check it out again. Like you barely could tell she's got like the short haircut, but I thought for some reason I always thought Taxi Driver was her first, but this was
Right.
before. So she
I
was
actually thought the
like,
same.
she was awesome. Like she was so great and like just one of those people that you're like, oh yeah, like she was destined for greatness always. Like
Yeah.
just the way she carries herself there. But like her relationship with him, like again, that age old, like kind of like army brats, like a location ship almost. You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
became super fast friends because they had dysfunctional families. They were kind of alone, and that whole thing. So to me, that holds up too.
Yeah. I'm gonna go a little hot take right here. Um, and I was debating whether I wanted to go this route, but I'm gonna do it because why not? And so one of the things I always thought of, so to be very honest, I didn't love the ending. I just felt there was a lot still kind of left on the table with her and a lot left unsettled. And not even really knowing like, okay, was it ever solved really, you know? And I'm not
Yeah,
saying solved like 100%, but like you kind of want to know the pathway. And there's a part of me that almost thought the son needed to die too. And that would really trigger her to go and end up in Monterey. And then you can kind of end it with, I finally got to Monterey. You're not here, but at least I finally got here. And I felt I feel like that way there's a little bit of like redemption to it because
redemption for what?
just her story in general. Like I mean a bit the movie
That is a hot take. The
the
better
movie
ending would have been if the kid died.
yeah. I'm not advocating kids dying. That's why I said it's I don't know if I
Hot
want
take.
to go
You
with this.
called it. Yeah.
But I'm just saying like in general like when I'm writing a character and they made it tough obviously and I like that. They did a good job, but I felt like the need shifted from their like need and desire, they kind of shifted slightly. And so like yes, she solves maybe she has a little clarity on her future, but to me it's just like okay. So what's all this talk with Monterey? Like I don't
I
know.
don't I don't disagree that the ending was disappointing. I would favor
Not
for
you don't
I
even
would
have to
favor for
kill
him
the
to stay alive, but no, I don't I also
well,
did not like the
instead
ending.
of making it like just a real solid Hollywood ending, because that would be a Hollywood ending is oh, the kid and the mom make it like that's a real Hollywood ending. But if they want to stick to the theme of this is a tough road,
Yeah.
then you're gonna have to sacrifice the kid, but then you still get there. And I again, I'm not necessarily advocating
Yeah.
that specifically, but my point is I felt very unsatisfied that they kept talking about Monterey this whole movie, and then it really doesn't even end with it about it. And I'm like,
Well, you saw that it got they got to Monterey, right? Did you see the last shot?
oh, maybe I didn't.
So as they're walking down the street on the very last shot after they talk about they're okay of staying, the last thing you see is they're walking towards a building that is the Monterey Club.
But they meant the city of Monterey, though.
Oh, of course. I'm just saying, like, similar to his like, uh, I'm giving Scorsese a little bit of a hard time. Similar to one of the worst moments in cinema history that ruined a perfectly good movie, The Rat at the end of The Departed. It was
Yeah.
like this weird little thing that he threw out there. You know, they're walking in front of the Monterey Club. I agree with you. The ending was especially because this was, I think, in many ways the best you could hope for like a feminist film from
Yeah.
a male filmmaker in the 70s.
Yeah.
Like it really was, I think, an earnest attempt at a feminist film.
I
But
agree.
for it to end with her staying with the like, we're not quite sure if he's abusive, and the only reason she got back with him is after she wasn't going to get back with him. He said, "I said
Yeah.
please."
Yeah, it was weird.
Like that piece of it kind of to me ruined sort of like the feminist like
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm with you. I'm gonna just go straight into my contemporary comparison because I think this is why I'm talking about the ending the way I am.
Yeah.
Is I definitely obviously saw a lot of Star is Born in this, and obviously Chris Kristopherson was in the '70s version of A Star is Born, and so that's a lot of what kind of like what made the new one very satisfying was even though Bradley Cooper died, Lady Gaga still fulfilled kind of her arc. And unfortunately for her to fulfill her arc, Bradley Cooper really couldn't have been there. And his had to basically end for her to get there. And I love that dynamic. And again, I think that's really creative writing.
Start
And
killing the kids.
yeah. And so, hey, whack the kid. The kid is the hindrance, Um, but yeah, again, I'm not necessarily saying, because obviously I would love to see her do it with the kid. And so again, I haven't fully fleshed out this idea, but my whole point is a lot of it was set up and it was just kind of like blew to the wayside. And again, I agree with your point, with like him. It was just like, oh, I want to get back together. Like there was really no winning her back. It was just like, and he just kind of, again, maybe that's the point, is her character is not that strong.
Yeah.
And then then it's just like, okay, then why do I just watch for 2 hours to watch a not strong woman just do what she does?
She got
Like,
strong and then she kind of went back. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. Again, I'm not saying you always have to make a crowd pleaser, but you know, I think playing in the middle sometimes doesn't work either. So,
Yeah.
but anyway,
Um,
Star is Born's my
Stars
favorite.
Born. Okay. For me, it was I was trying to I was going through the catalog in my head of a couple. I had a couple different thoughts, but I'm gonna go with I went more of the sort of like her and the first husband and just sort of her falling into these sort of abusive relationships. I chose A Marriage Story with
Oh, I
Scarlett
haven't seen
Johansson
that one, but it sounds like it's a good comp.
and Adam Driver. I mean, I think they're both phenomenal actors.
Yeah,
It was really good, and if you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it, but like you should definitely check it out. But essentially, it's like
Netflix, right?
it's like you're watching and kind of going back and forth on the end of their marriage, and then the rest of it is sort of like what that does to each of their relationships with the kids, but specifically with Scarlett Johansson. So, for me, I like that one as a sort of a modern take on it.
I like that. And then let's move into, should this movie be remade today and who should star in it?
I think so. I think it could be remade today. I think, like I said, a lot of the themes and character studies and all that stuff is there. I think it could be made with like maybe a little bit more modern comedy. Like I think this movie was funny, but one of the things that is a little bit more dated is the comedy, and they were just like less risky back then, right? When it
Yeah.
came to comedy and stuff. So I think, or at least in motion pictures, like stand up was different, but in motion pictures they were a little bit less risky. So I think it could be funny. For me, I was kind of vacillating. Actually, you mentioned her. I thought like Lady Gaga could be really good as
Yeah.
Alice. And I also feel like maybe like a Kristen Wiig who
Oh yeah.
can play very dramatic and sort of sad and that, but also is like obviously hilariously funny when she wants to be.
Yeah.
So I think Kristen Wiig, and then for the Kristopherson role, a little bit less mainstream, at least in terms of movies. But I was kind of thinking like Luke Grimes could be good. He's from Yellowstone. He was
Uh,
in El Camino Christmas. He also sings. Like he's like started being like a country star. So like, not that you have to do that to be Chris Kristopherson, but like I agree with you. I would have liked a little bit more of their music
yeah.
in the movie because that was such an important piece to her, and then like he's teaching Tommy guitar and stuff like that. But to waste Chris Christopherson and to not have him have a little bit
Yeah, that's
more.
kind of what I felt like. It's like, okay, cool. Well, you didn't really need him if you're not gonna have him
Yeah,
really sing.
and he was fine, but like
Yeah, I liked him.
it'd be like having Johnny Cash in the movie and not having him sing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think maybe like Luke Grimes. Could also see like Oscar Isaac.
Can you sing?
Yeah, you've seen Inside Llewellyn Davis, Coen Brothers film?
No, I haven't.
Oh yeah, he's really good
Oh, nice. Yeah, the other one, I mean, also Jeff Bridges, I think could have like, if this was back then,
for
I
sure.
definitely Jeff Bridges handling this role too. Um,
Bridges could do it now.
yeah. Yeah, I kind of, like you're saying, I kind of agree. Lady Gaga would have been mine. Honestly, I just saw this as A Star is Born, so it's like very similar, just kind of different setting. And I wanted to see, the other part too was, again, like what I loved about A Star is Born was like Lady Gaga's, like, I mean, the first song had a lot of energy, but then her other real song was like electric, right? And I thought all the songs that she sang really were just so slow tempoed, And I'm just like, can she sing something where it's like you see that she has something?
Yeah.
Like I just thought that was a little murky too. Like, so is she good? Is she not? I mean, she can sing, but a
Not
lot of people can.
terrible. Yeah. Like when she went to the piano bar that was like this crazy honky tonk dive with like an
Yeah,
electric keyboard or whatever, but um yeah, it was like so downer.
yeah. So I
Yeah,
just
I almost thought she was gonna cry at the end of it.
maybe that was the point. Maybe they're trying to say is like, yeah, she's really not good enough.
Yeah.
But they didn't
But the guy,
really.
the guy did it.
That's what I'm saying. So I was kind of confused with that. I didn't really understand if they were trying to say she's not good or if she is like. But again, I think part of it is you didn't really choose a song to let me know if she was good or not
Yeah.
because I don't know. Interesting choice at that. All right, that's gonna wrap it up for this part. Let's move on to our top five Martin Scorsese films. Kind of curious. I think we'll probably have different ones. I'm assuming, but
Oh, I know one that you're gonna put on here for sure.
I'm curious what you think that it is.
I just have a guess.
All right. Well, let me know when that
I
is.
will. I will. I
Uh,
will.
but yeah, give me your number five.
Number five, it could have easily left this off the list, but I'm putting it on there because I do really like it, but it's also so different. Like one of the things I like about Scorsese is the fact that he'll do sort of like passion projects that are
Mhm.
kind of off, obviously now he writes his own ticket, but late 70s, I'm a giant fan of The Band. And he made a film called The Last Waltz, which kind of chronicles the band's final concert, with tons of like other of my like heroes of music like Van Morrison, Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan, Neil Young, etc. So it's such a different thing for him to do, but such a great documentary film. And it just a tribute to the fact that he loves music and he loved this music and this band, and they were important to him. So he was kind of like a love letter to a band going, that was breaking up.
Yeah, I saw that he was the director of like not Thriller, right? Or was it Thriller?
Oh, maybe.
He directed one of Michael Jackson's films. Oh, Bad.
Just the first record I ever owned.
So I was very tempted to put that, but I just went normal here.
That's fine.
My number five is Casino. Um,
Casino, like you can't see it, is the
okay.
film I knew would be on your list.
Well, I mean, a lot of people would agree with me on this. It's not like
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just I knew of all of them for some reason that would be on your phone. Go ahead.
well, you know what I realized? I 100% admire Martin Scorsese, but I'm not like a raging fan of him. I'm not. There's a lot of movies I'm just like, I thought it was okay. It was okay. Not,
Yeah.
I'm not in love with it. Didn't hate it. Like, spoil it. Like, The Aviator's not on my list. I liked
Yeah.
it, but I thought that film could have been so much better. I,
Agreed.
but there's a lot of things I liked about it. I love what they did with the color in that film. But I just feel like that's a lot with me with
His
Scorsese.
films have even his great films have lots of warts.
Yeah, he's an interesting filmmaker. Okay, yeah, my number five is Casino, and then my number four in this movie, I think will continue to rise up because I really do. One, it's shot in Boston, and I love it. I love Boston films, but then the cast is amazing, and I think this is just a film you got to watch more and more, and it's The Departed. I think I thought it was like whatever when it first came out, and the second time I watched it, like I really liked it, and I think it's like fine wine. Like the more I watch it, the more I see a lot of it's brilliant. So it's like I keep wanting to watch it. So that's my number four.
I need to watch it again because I don't have it on my list and I didn't love it. So maybe it sounds like that was the way you felt about it the first time.
Yeah,
The rat at the end, like whoever allowed him to do, like whatever. Um, but I need to rewatch it. Wahlberg walks maybe the finest line of any actor working in America today of whether I'm going to love him or hate him. And he's constantly straddling it because he can be so annoying.
yeah,
So, anyway, my number four could have been higher. Some people think it's his best. Some people think it's one of the best films ever made. It was Raging Bull. Um, I like I like sports movies. They're not my favorite genre, but I do like them when they're well done.
yeah.
And I like for whatever reason, boxing movies are maybe the most transcendent of all sports movies.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's De
I think
Niro in a,
easiest to execute.
yeah, it's De Niro in a way that you've never seen him. It it's really, 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 really good.
Like
It,
basketball movies are, I think, the hardest
yeah,
because there's just not that many good basketball players that can act. And
yeah,
basketball is such a unique the way you need to dribble a ball to make it look like you know what you're doing. Like it's not everybody can do it. Like Adam Sandler is obviously like one of the few guys,
yeah.
but when he plays basketball in a movie, he's not LeBron. He's not playing LeBron
Not
James.
pretending like he's playing an NBA game.
No, but he can play, so he looks like he can
Sure.
play, but he's not trying to play LeBron James, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and then if you get a good, like, one of the best movies basketball wise, there's two, Hustle, and that used a real NBA guy, and then
White
Shooting
Man.
Stars.
I was gonna say White Man Can't Jump is a great
Yes,
movie.
that was great. But Wesley Snipes couldn't play basketball though. They
No, I know.
completely cut around that and did that with slow motion to
Yeah,
but apparently he's one of the worst athletes ever. They say he's so slow. And it's like, what? Willie Mays Hayes? And
that's
they're like,
amazing.
yeah, he's the slowest guy. And that's why they always shot him in slow motion. I was like, it's so amazing. Film magic.
That's awesome.
What number are you on? You're on three?
I have to do three.
Oh, do three. Okay.
Again, like I said, any of these are kind of interchangeable. It's in definitely imperfect. Definitely has some slow lulls in this, but Gangs in New York is my number three. Daniel Day-Lewis is as Bill the Butcher is unbelievably good. DiCaprio's great. Cameron Diaz is horrific. Um,
Yeah.
but I
I'm
like
not
it.
even a big fan of Leo in that movie. I agree with you about Daniel Day-Lewis. I think he's fantastic. I think I'd prefer the movie be more about him.
Yeah,
And again, I think the movie's too long. Like,
it is.
but there's some great scenes in that movie. Like there's part of that movie where it's like the greatest movie of all time, and there's other parts like,
Opening scene with the fight with the dead
oh,
rabbit.
so
And
great.
it just, I mean, it's like one of those things, like kind of the scene in opening scene in Saving Private Ryan. It like changed fight scenes, I think,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. So I think there's tons from it, and Daniel Day-Lewis is unbelievable. I give Leo a little bit higher marks than you probably do, and there are
I don't think
lots
it's
of
bad. I just don't. It
yeah,
wasn't like I said compared to Daniel Day-Lewis though. I just thought his
no,
character was like whatever because this was like Titanic Leo, so it's like I think I love Leo now. I think he's better now. Like to me, The Revenant was really a game changer for him. But a
yeah,
lot of these roles, I always thought he was slightly overrated. Not like he was bad, just I
I
didn't
don't
think he was like Oscar worthy.
I don't disagree. And The Revenant was like a career achievement award, right?
Yeah.
Although I thought that he was great. Leo, oh, what were we talking about? Not liking him. There's another
No,
film.
no,
Anyway,
I like him. I don't want it to sound like I don't like him. I
yeah.
think he's to me he like him and Brad Pitt were to me are very similar in that respect. Is before like in their early careers they would get roles, and this I'm not hating on this at all. Like more power to you. They were getting a lot of roles because they were just good looking guys, and a lot of their roles, and this is not their fault, but was just hey I'm a good looking guy, blah blah blah. And it wasn't really until I would say their 30s. Now, Brad Pitt would start to do like movie like a Fight Club and
Also,
Seven. And I
before I
think
was gonna
that,
say before Fight Club 7, and even before Fight Club, he was hilarious in True Romance as the stoner on the
yeah,
couch.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a small role.
Yeah.
But I thought he would take more chances though than
Leo.
Leo. But then Brad Pitt would really start to because like 7 years in Tibet. 7 years in Tibet was to me like, hey, I'm good looking Brad Pitt. And I'm just wandering. But the movie,
Totally.
like, he didn't talk that much. At least I don't remember him talking that much. It was just like whatever. But it was just I don't know. But then he eventually evolved to his character like Ocean's 11, and then he really started to have. I thought really his personality really started to play out. Same as Leo. I thought his we really started to see his personality into his 30s and then 40 and 50s. Like I don't even know if he's 50 yet, but
He's
uh,
not. I don't think he's there yet.
yeah. But my point is, I thought we really started to see their personalities, and I think that's really when they're acting. was justified in like the best actor. I think in this phase, he's still not quite there yet. Not
I
again, he's
agree.
not bad. But I think he's a way better actor in his films now than he was back then.
I agree. One of the other films that changed my mind about him, even though it was as a bad kind of a bad guy, is really a bad guy, is I loved him. He was so good in Django Unchained.
Oh, I loved him in Django
Oh my
Unchained.
God, he was so good. It was such a
And I love
different.
the fact that he took that role. Because again,
Oh,
that's to my point, is to me, he is afraid to make these kind of,
yeah,
I want to do that role. It's a cool role. I want to do it. I don't care that I'm not the lead in that movie. Again,
yeah.
this is an old Hollywood, especially like 2000s. They talk about an entourage, but it's like, oh, I'm an A-list movie star. I don't do TV. I only do I'm the star. And that was what they went through in like the early 2000s. Although again, Brad Pitt I think bucked that a little bit before that. But
You
then
and I
now,
are, yeah, you and I are in complete agreement about those two, for
yeah.
sure.
But
True.
now you'll see like Matt Damon is the king of this. You'll see him show up in a small movie for 10 seconds and like, hey man, blah blah blah. And he's just come and crush it, walk out. And it's like, that's awesome. I love that stuff.
I agree.
Yeah.
He's another. Matt Damon has come a long way. That dude, I have mad respect for that dude.
Yeah. Okay, that was your three, right?
That was my number three.
Okay, so my number three uh is the same. It's Raging Bull. Was that the same? I forgot.
Mine was four.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So my three is similar to your four. Raging Bull. Very good sports film. Really, I think his first, like we meant, he's very experimental. I think Raging Bull was his first real mainstream coherent film where it's less warty. Like I think that might be his best complete film up to that date.
Mhm.
Because I think his filmmaking, his innovation, and story are all mixed. The music, everything, cinematography, editing, everything is kind of mixed together in this one. And I think this is his best film up to that point. My number two, and honestly, this might even be my number one, but I'm allowing myself to not be an idiot, I guess. But my number two, but it's probably my favorite, is Wolf of Wall Street. And I love the fact that he did this film. I think it's really shows this different side of Martin Scorsese where I think he does have a very good sense of humor. And I think this movie really let him like let loose. And there is parts of this movie where it's just so hilarious and outrageous that you just forget it's like, wow, this is Martin Scorsese. But at the same time, it's like it still has very innovative filmmaking. And again, I love Leo in this role. This is, I think, maybe Leo's best role. Definitely my favorite role for him. And I love everything about this film.
Okay. I need to see it again because it like The Departed for me, it's not that high on
Yeah.
my list. I I just think I went through like a cynical phase and like it was like I couldn't look past just playing to all of the excess in that film, but I understand that everybody loves it, so I need to watch it again. Number two for
And I
me,
think just watch some YouTube clips too, because those, I mean, there's again, sometimes just watching the scenes of it just remind you how funny it is. At least for me, I think it's hilarious.
for sure. I have to go back to it, no doubt. Number two for me is Goodfellas. Could have been number one easily. Goodfellas is one of the if I
And
had
I'm
to,
curious what your number one is. Oh, I know your number one is.
you know what my number one is. If I had to put like a top 10 of films that like mattered to me in my life, maybe not my favorite films or whatever, but like that were super important in my like growth in appreciating movies, Goodfellas is absolutely in it. It's like one of those films that I caught in my late teens, early 20s, along with like The Big Lebowski, The Big Sleep, some other Coen Brothers films that Rushmore that really caught my attention uh, and um and really just sort of changed how I looked at movies, changed what I thought people could do with movies. Yeah, it's a gangster film, but it's so much more than that. The techniques in it, um, the writing, the dialogue, it to me is a close to perfect movie.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think I mean, spoiler it, that's my number one.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was really hard for me to not put it number one.
yeah. And I watch a lot of these films over again, Casino, Goodfellas, like when I was working on a lot of these interviews with the mobster guys, I needed to educate myself because like everyone always talks about Goodfellas, and I wasn't, to be honest, I don't even think I saw it at the time. And
Oh,
so I really had to immerse myself in mobster lore. Like I had to rewatch Godfather a few times. Like I had to watch these because it's just like, if you're, especially if you're in these projects and it's like, oh, have you seen The Godfather? No, I haven't. It's just, you're an idiot. It's like, well, do
they're
your
gonna be
homework.
like, leave immediately.
Yeah, exactly. So, I really went through a solid mobster movie phase. And, I also worked with Michael Franzese. And so he's actually in that film. Not him, the person, but his character is in the film.
Yeah.
And so, you just watch it over and again. And I think the first 45 minutes of that film is like you're saying, it's perfect. Like perfect.
Yep.
But I think after that, and I think it's just kind of natural to tell the whole story, is it has to drop a little bit. But when you're talking about a first 45 minutes of film, like flawless, I mean, it really is. It's amazing storytelling, entertaining, stylistic, like the whole nine. I mean, it's just a masterclass on filmmaking. And I wish that film, if there was a way, and I don't have a solution, I would maybe need to watch it again if there's a way to solve the problem I have. And it's not a big problem because I still think it's a great movie, but I think it's a little too long. But I don't know if you can change it without not telling the whole story.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in probably 10 or 15 years. I need to go watch it again. I love it. But and I will be so glad to have had some time off because I can't wait to see it again.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've seen it. I watch it like once a year at this point now, and it is like I said, even if you just watch the first 45 minutes, it's so good.
I love and I one of my favorite people in that movie, one of my favorite actors of all time, Paul Sorvino.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that dude.
Yeah, and
Um,
I love Ray Liotta, and when he passed away, I rewatched it again for sure because like
Ray
sometimes,
Liotta, Ray Liotta as Henry Hill is a top 10 match ever.
yeah,
So good.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so what do you got number one?
I got Taxi Driver.
Okay,
And
yeah,
if you know that, not don't have to say too much about it. It is one of the big ones out there. De Niro is astonishing on every level, including physically.
yeah,
What he does to, change his appearance, the working out, all of that. Like it is so intense watching him, Travis Bickle, like become what he becomes. It's really impressive.
yeah, for
The
sure.
street, the cinematography at night in New York City with the neon lights and splashing through the taxi as they're driving in the rain and all of that. Like the atmosphere is as New York 70s gritty as you could ever imagine.
Yeah,
The Jodie Foster piece is so terrifying. Like that storyline is so terrifying and tragic and
yeah,
gritty.
yeah.
Um,
That's another film I want to watch again.
yeah. It's awesome. Scorsese's a genius, and De Niro, for a man that crushed it 1,000 times, he crushes it in this movie maybe more than anywhere else.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and really, what I think, what the like you're saying, the brilliance of the film is, and obviously it's a lot more popular now, but like making a really dark film entertaining and that you want to watch, like that's really the brilliance of this film because it really is dark, and this is like the beginning phase of when people would do stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just a very raw and gritty film, and you know, it it,
And
it executes on a lot of levels.
the juxtaposition between the darkness and Bickle's character and Sybil Shepherd and the lightness of her and like watching what happens to her as she gets more and more drawn into his world.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're a filmmaker, I would say read about it because, like you're saying, you don't necessarily pick up this stuff unless you're just super intuitive. But when you learn from other people that have studied the film and have seen it millions of times, then you appreciate what they're doing. You're like, oh wow, okay. And then you kind of get an eye for that. Versus like if you just walk in, you're not necessarily gonna understand what you're saying because you're speaking Latin, basically, what you're saying, Drew.
Yeah.
And for the average viewer, they're not gonna understand these nuances, but they're there. And again, it's like this movie's written in 20 languages, and it's like, well, but you missed that language over here. Like it's this. If you know this language, it's that. Like again, there's so many layers to the film. Really, again, you're seeing it in Alice, like how good he is with, again, innovation with not just the camera, but lighting, blocking, everything. And again, that's what kind of a big reason why I wanted to watch this film. So awesome. I love your list.
No,
Uh,
it's good.
yeah, so that's gonna wrap it up for this one. Next week's film, guys. Hope you continue to join us on this journey. I want to go back to the westerns because, like I told you, I love westerns, and but I think we mentioned in another podcast how poor my Clint Eastwood Western knowledge is. So that was where my head went immediately. I was like, I need to see a Clint Eastwood Western. And so I asked Drew, what haven't you seen? I gave him a few. We both have not seen Hang 'em High. Guys, don't. Sorry. I know. I know. I've seen a lot of John Wayne. I've not seen as much Clint Eastwood, but this is where this podcast is going to rectify that mistake for us. So Hang 'em High with Clint Eastwood. It's on HBO Max. So if you want to join us, HBO Max. By the way, a lot of great Westerns on HBO Max. The worst streaming service for Westerns is Netflix. And I hate to say that. Netflix is a great company. They do a lot of great things, but they're not very good at movies before 1970s and Westerns. So I'm just throwing out there. I literally been studying this, and Stars is actually amazing for Westerns. They have an old catalog on it, and HBO Max, because they're Warner Brothers and they're a few other studios, but and then Paramount Plus is also great now because they have bought an MGM. MGM has a lot of great Westerns in the 50s and 60s. So again, there's an app, by the way. There's an app called Just Watch It. If you ever want to know, like, hey, what's this movie streaming on? You type in the movie, it'll tell you where you can watch it. So Just Watch It. We are not sponsored by them, but maybe someday we will. So thanks, Drew, for joining us.
Thank you. Go Lions.
Go Lions. This is shot, guys. This will come out after the result, but we're shooting this before the NFC Championship. So hopefully next time you see us, we're very happy and we're on our route to the Super Bowl. So Drew, cheers. Let's go Lions. And with that, that's a cut. Thanks, guys.